Welcome to Headline Wednesday from Dispatch U.S. Military History Magazine, developed by trackpads.com.
Each week, we take one pivotal moment from United States military history and follow it from the first warning signs to the final outcome.
Today, we go to the skies over Ploesti in the Second World War for the story of the low-level raid on Axis oil. A longer version of this story, with fact sheets and photos, is available in the print edition, either on LinkedIn or by email.
The first thing the bomber crews see is smoke, thick, oily columns already climbing into the Romanian sky. Below them, wheat fields, orchards, and farmyards blur past at more than 200 miles an hour, so close that fences and ditch lines seem to flicker under the wingtips. These are heavy B-24 Liberators, built to fly high and steady, but today they are thundering at tree-line height. Gunners can pick out faces in the fields, and they know the defenders can see them just as clearly. Ahead lies a maze of refineries, storage tanks, cracking towers, and rail yards that feed the Axis war machine. Inside each aircraft, the air is hot, noisy, and tense. Oxygen masks hang unused, intercom lines crackle with short warnings, and navigators peer through dust-smeared plexiglass for landmarks that no longer look like the photographs from the briefing room. The long flight from North Africa has already stretched the bomber stream, and the smoke over the target turns streets, sidings, and rail lines into guesswork. Then the flak begins to build. Black puffs and orange flashes burst at the same level as the Liberators, not far below them as in a high-altitude raid. Some gun positions are close enough for crews to see the recoil before shells explode around them. The bombers rock and shudder as fragments strike metal and shockwaves slap the wings. Still, the formations press on, sometimes nearly level with church steeples and smokestacks. In seconds, the sky over Ploesti becomes flame, steel, smoke, and screaming engines. For the Axis, the oil fields and refineries around Ploesti are more than an industrial district. Romanian production supplies gasoline for tanks and trucks, aviation fuel for aircraft, and lubricants for factories and shipyards from the Eastern Front to the Mediterranean. Allied planners understand that hitting Ploesti means squeezing the logistics chain that keeps German operations moving. Earlier high-altitude raids have caused damage, but production has recovered and defenses have tightened. By the time the Liberators arrive, this is an armed fortress built around oil.
For the United States Army Air Forces, the mission carries strategic and political weight. American air doctrine has promised that long-range bombing can reach into the enemy's heartland and cripple his ability to wage war. A deep strike from North Africa against Romania tests that idea in a dramatic way. Thousands of airmen, hundreds of aircraft, the fuel to carry them there and back, and the credibility of strategic bombing are all tied to the outcome. If the raid works, it will show that American air power can strike the enemy's lifeblood. If it fails, it will look like a costly gamble. At crew level, the stakes are more immediate. Each Liberator carries 10 men who have heard enough to understand the odds. They have flown for hours over water and enemy territory toward a target ringed by one of the densest anti-aircraft belts in Europe. Romanian and German gunners have prepared kill zones, sighted guns around refineries and approaches, strung balloons and cables, and practiced for low-level attacks. The men in the aircraft know this is no routine mission.
The idea of striking Axis oil has been built in North African briefing rooms months before the crews see Romania. By mid-1943, Allied forces have fought through Tunisia and are using desert airfields for longer-range operations. Planners keep returning to the same fact. As long as the Axis can draw fuel from Romanian refineries, German armies can keep moving tanks, trucks, and aircraft. A single daylight strike from North Africa, using heavy bombers at low level, appears to offer a sharper blow than earlier high-altitude attacks.
The aircraft chosen for the job are B-24 Liberators. They have the range and payload to make the trip, even if they were not designed for hedge-hopping over fields and smokestacks. Mechanics modify them with extra fuel tanks, survival gear, and carefully balanced bomb loads. Every pound of fuel adds distance but reduces margin. Once they launch from Libya, the crews have to reach Romania, attack, and still have enough left to limp back toward friendly fields. Training is intense and focused. In the desert, crews practice low-level formation flying, rushing over improvised ranges and learning to judge clearance by instinct. Mock target complexes stand in for the refineries. Pilots rehearse approach routes and turns. Bombardiers memorize aiming points, and navigators study a path that bends around defenses, borders, mountains, and weather. The plan depends on radio silence, clocks, compasses, and the correct recognition of rivers, rail lines, and towns from very low altitude. In the final briefings, the plan hardens into a tight script. The force will launch at dawn on August 1st, 1943, from multiple desert fields, form up over the Mediterranean, cross into Europe low enough to complicate radar, and approach Ploesti on assigned headings. Each bomb group has specific targets meant to avoid collisions and concentrate damage on key refineries. Everyone understands that one navigational mistake near the target could ripple into disaster. The first hours are a long, tense climb into the dawn, and then a low passage over the Mediterranean. Heavily loaded B-24s lift from dusty runways, with wings sagging under fuel and bombs. Over water, the bomber groups spread across miles of sky. Radio silence stretches on, broken mainly by intercom chatter inside individual aircraft. Below, the landscape changes from sea to rugged hills, and then to the flatter ground that leads toward Romania. As the force moves inland, German and Romanian warning networks begin to react. Fighters scramble, but the low approach makes interception difficult until the bombers near the target. The navigation burden grows heavier with every mile. Near a critical turning point, a leading element misreads the waypoint and turns too soon. A significant portion of the force follows the wrong heading. Other crews see the deviation and have to choose between following the leaders into improvisation or holding to the original route and risking isolation. The orderly attack plan begins to fray. Instead of arriving from well-separated directions at staggered times, liberators approach Ploesti from multiple angles in a tighter window. The risk of crowding, overlapping runs, and confusion rises sharply. From any single cockpit, it may still look like a formation pressing in, but the wider pattern is coming apart. The sky over Romania is about to become dangerously crowded. For defenders on the ground, the first glimpse is startling. Instead of thin contrails high overhead, they see heavy bombers roaring just above rooftops, fields, and rail yards. Guns swing into action around refineries, rail lines, and approaches. Smoke generators pour thick clouds across the industrial district. Balloons and obstacles force bombers into narrow lanes and lower altitudes, exactly where prepared fire can do the most damage. Inside the liberators, the fight feels like flying through a burning factory floor. Pilots pull hard to avoid smokestacks, cables, and other aircraft while trying to keep their planes steady enough for bomb aimers to work. Flames and black smoke from earlier hits and industrial fires hide reference points. Some aircraft clip obstacles and fall in seconds. Others stagger through repeated hits, engines smoking or burning, yet hold together long enough to release bombs at treetop height. From above, if anyone could see the whole attack, it would look less like a neat diagram and more like a close-range brawl. Groups meant for different refineries converge over similar clusters of tanks and piping. Crews unable to identify primary targets shift to marshalling yards, power plants, and industrial nodes they can actually see. The destruction spreads,
But the focus on the most important refinery targets becomes uneven. Every extra second over the city gives the defenses more time to aim.
The turning point at Ploesti is not one signal or radio call. It is the collision between American determination and a target tougher than the map suggested. On paper, the low-level attack offers surprise and precision. In reality, the defenses are layered, rehearsed, and fully awake. Anti-aircraft guns are dug in and camouflaged. Balloons hold steel cables in the air, and smoke blinds crews at exactly the wrong moments. This is not a rear area facility caught unprepared.
Inside the broken bomber stream, the battle is shaped by choices made in seconds. Pilots decide whether to hold a briefed course or follow aircraft already turning. Bombardiers decide whether vague shapes in smoke match their assigned complexes or whether to shift to secondary targets. Gunners keep firing at pits and towers while tracers come straight at them and their own aircraft shake under impacts. Some crews hit the exact refineries in their folders. Others bomb the industrial targets they can positively identify. The refineries burn fiercely. Oil tanks erupt in fireballs that dwarf the aircraft passing overhead, and towers, pipes, and warehouses vanish into rolling flame and black cloud. From the cockpit, the destruction can look total, yet the damage is uneven. Some major plants are badly hit and suffer serious production losses. Others escape with less damage or recover more quickly than Allied planners hope.
The cost is immediate. The low-level approach exposes every bomber to point-blank fire, with no altitude buffer and no time for shells or fragments to lose force. Dozens of aircraft are shot down or damaged beyond useful repair. By the time survivors pull away from Ploesti, the sky behind them is a wall of smoke and fire, and the price in aircraft and men is still climbing with every mile flown home, over mountains, hostile territory, and sea. On the ground, the aftermath is complicated. Workers and soldiers fight fires, clear wreckage, patch pipelines, reroute flow, and cannibalize damaged equipment. Some refineries are out for weeks, others resume partial operations sooner. Axis commanders feel the shock in fuel reports and stockpiles, but they also see that the oil lifeline has not been completely cut. Production dips, recovers unevenly, and forces a constant race between repair crews and future attacks. For the American air groups, the cost is personal and visible. Empty hard stands and empty bunks tell the story before formal reports do. Some bombers have gone down in enemy territory, some in neutral countries, and some into the sea. Crews who return bring accounts of engines failing one by one, of friends disappearing into smoke, and of aircraft so damaged that simply reaching any landing ground becomes a final act of skill and luck.
Inside those losses are acts of courage that define the raid's memory. Damaged bombers press on to bomb. Gunners stay at their positions while their aircraft burn or shudder under hits. Crewmen care for wounded comrades in cabins filled with fuel fumes, smoke, and cordite. Pilots coax dying aircraft over ridges and across water on the edge of stall speed and fuel exhaustion. For many veterans, these moments become the real measure of the mission.
Strategically, Ploesti becomes a case study for air planners. It proves that low-level heavy bomber strikes can inflict serious damage on fortified industrial targets. It also proves that prepared defenses can extract a terrible price. Over time, the Allied air campaign shifts toward high-altitude bombing, broader attacks on transportation networks, and repeated pressure against the enemy war economy, rather than relying on one dramatic blow. Lessons from Ploesti shape later mission planning and training.
Today, the raid stands for the tension at the heart of strategic air power. It is about crews who flew long, low, and into known danger to strike at the fuel behind the front lines. It is also about the limits of bravery when intelligence, planning, weather,
navigation, and defenses collide in unexpected ways. The aircraft change in later wars, and the weapons change, but the hard questions remain. How much risk is acceptable, and what price is a nation willing to pay to reach deep into an enemy's heartland?